What's going on the front of Colin Kaepernick, Albert? Let's just jump right in on that subject right off the bat. The commissioner going on ESPN on that return to sports special that had so many of the most powerful people in sports in front of Mike Greenberg's Q&A. So the commissioner said he's encouraging teams to sign him. Where do things stand on that front right now?
Well, I think it's significant that he said it publicly. I do know that there were some people, at the league office in 16 and 17 that really wanted, Colin Kaepernick to find a home. And, they really felt like it would have been a good story for the league. But, I think, sort of the way things worked back then, I think it was seen as a way more negative story than it is now. And so, I think the fact that the commissioner feels comfortable coming out and saying it publicly is significant. And I think it also kind of provides cover for a team to come and sign him because, the commissioner was the first one to actually speak publicly at length about it the way that he did. And so, look, I think we've all acknowledged now, a big piece of this was always, in 16 and 17, a big piece of the reason why he couldn't find a home was because a lot of teams weren't willing to put up with everything that would come along with Colin Kaepernick, when most would have employed him as a backup quarterback. Well, now, if you look at all that stuff, that extra stuff that comes along with him, where I think a lot of that stuff was seen as negative back then, now, I think for some teams in some markets, signing him would be a positive. It might be a PR win for some teams. And so I think that's sort of how the landscape's changed. It doesn't mean it's not complicated from here. But I do think that, what the commissioner came out and, said was reflective of a changing attitude across the league. And, the fact that he's willing to say it publicly instead of just having people in his office talk about it privately is significant too.
So here's the question, Albert, is we just don't know what Kaepernick thinks of all this, because even if there are a couple teams that say, definitely let's get him, because yesterday I made a point, and I think Peter King has made the point, I'm sure you have too, that, in the COVID-19 2020 NFL season, and as we've seen with the NBA, multiple positives will not shut down the sport. They're going to try and figure this thing out, either on the fly or with as much of a plan in place in advance. The NFL the same way. Dr. Alan Sills, the chief medical officer, is on the show. I mentioned about having like a COVID-19 protocol similar to the concussion protocol. Someone has to clear it to return. He said yes, that a third string quarterback even could play a significant role for a team in 2020 NFL season. The question is, though, is what does Kaepernick want? What does he want? He hasn't said a word on this front. What do you think he wants? Colin, you hear anything with
I don't know.
on this front?
I wish I had a better answer for you. I think really kind of the operative things here, though. Number one, we've seen the NFL find a way to manufacture jobs for guys in the past, right? It happened with Michael Sam, to a degree with the Cowboys in 2014. And so, if that's part of this, how does Kaepernick look at that? You know what I'm saying? Does he look at that and say, well, this isn't on the up and up. This smells funny. I don't want to do it. So there's that element of it, how this whole thing kind of, if there is a job offer, how it just sort of manifests itself. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is, is he willing to go in somewhere on low money with no guarantee of a job? I think it's important to remember, as last year in the league, he was in the trade block. He was benched in the middle of the season, and so I think by definition at the very end, he was seen as a backup quarterback, and now he's been out of the league for 3 years, and so look, he could get into camp and kill it. It's possible that he finds a home and it's awesome, but it's also possible that 3 years have taken its toll. And so is he comfortable going somewhere knowing there's no guarantee that he's going to have a job in September just because he's there in July? And on the other side of that, is a team willing to take on the fact that if you do wind up cutting him at the end of training camp, that could create a problem for you. So, I think those are some of the complications that I think that everybody sort of has to work through. But I think that only Colin can answer, what he actually wants. And, I think if it's purely, I just want a shot to win a job. I just want a shot to get into a training camp and win a job. I certainly think that opportunity will probably be out there for him. And it'll just be, I would love to see it because I would love to see, I remember what he was in 2012 and 2013.
He's amazing. He's done
and even if there's 60, even if there's a piece of that magic left, it will be fun to watch.
Well, and plus you want to talk about wanting to prove something. Again, just the question is the offering of a job. If he feels it's a token gesture, he's not going to take it, and he shouldn't. But
right.
There's really no such thing as a token gesture in 2020 NFL. Again, one quarterback can test positive. Exactly. This is a significant necessity to get as many quarterbacks that can play the game on your team. Don't you think? In this year.
Right.
For sure.
No question. And here, it's interesting. I think was it Bruce Arians? There was someone else that said publicly, talked about quarantining a quarterback, right? There were two coaches last week that talked about that. I've heard multiple teams talk about the idea of having meetings with their quarterbacks in separate rooms because it'd be risky to have them together all the time. If, say, one of the guys gets it, even if he's asymptomatic, you increase the likelihood that you wipe out your entire quarterback room. You wipe out your quarterback room, you're screwed. And so I certainly think there exists this possibility where if I'm one of these teams, maybe I'm bringing like 5 quarterbacks to camp, Rich, because I just want to have 5 quarterbacks that know my system.
You bet.
Knowing I might cut 2 of them, but those 2 guys are out there on the street, and I know I've got those guys sort of in reserve if there's some sort of outbreak, on my team. And so I'm with you. I think that there's going to be those sorts of opportunities out there for guys. And again, I think that the question then becomes, under what context does Colin want to return to the league? I think that's the question that's, I think, only he can answer.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.